Welcome back to United in the States weekly news show. July 15th, the first preseason match is already here. Kind of hard to believe considering it feels like the season just ended, but it was about 50 days ago. One transfer in, Joshua Zirkzee signing on the dotted line, and a few others seemingly close, or are they? If you're new, don't forget to like and subscribe, as well as turning on notifications for more content. Now, let's just get right into it. So first bit of housekeeping, first bit of news, the front office / coaching staff news. Omar Barada officially started as CEO of Manchester United over the weekend, releasing a letter on social media, as well as updating his LinkedIn. Always got to update that LinkedIn when you start a new job. Just a little background quickly, everybody should know, but he was poached from Manchester City, and he was highly regarded in that organization. He was kind of seen as the successor to their current director of football. I'm going to butcher this name, but I think it's Tiki Bergistan, and he kind of runs Man City's football operations. Omar Barada was listed as COO of the City Football Group, so that oversaw Manchester City, Girona, New York City FC. I forget what the French club's name is, but a bunch of clubs around the world that have been purchased by Manchester City that they use to attract and develop talent in those areas. So it's something that, he has experience in a multi-club structure, which I think, United already are part of a multi-club ownership structure when you consider the Glazers and Ineos, but it's possible that they aspire to buy additional clubs and to create a similar focus. And getting someone like Omar Barada in place who knows that structure was a real big coup for them. Also, it was the signaling of Ineos's intent of moving like real G's in silence, like lasagna, little Wayne reference there. But essentially, there was no news, nothing beforehand. United has leaked like a leaky boat for the past couple of years. Any signing that was made, we've known in months in advance. This one seemed to happen overnight, or at least was announced overnight. So a great signing for Manchester United. And finally, someone on the football side, being involved in these football decisions and becoming the CEO and shifting the focus of it being like a marketing brand to an organization that is functioning based on winning and success on the pitch and using that to translate into marketing deals and revenue, et cetera. The other, news from the front office / coaching staff is Gel 10 Rular. Not sure if I'm saying that one correctly, but he is the new goalkeeping coach coming in from Burnley by way of Ajax. Ajax, he was going to be there. He signed for maybe a month before we poached him. I don't even know if he even signed with Ajax officially. He must have, because we paid compensation. But he was announced today. Not sure when he's actually joining the team, but a welcome addition, a new goalkeeping coach. Now, transfer news this week. Right now, let's talk about the ins. So one thing I did want to highlight before we talk about it is that I've been very happy with United's change in transfer strategy from previous years. This year, we've seen clear intent based on who we're linked to in the media, the players we've bid for, and the player we just signed, Joshua Zirkzee, that United are focused on players who are about to enter their prime or who are entering their prime, not players who are in the middle / leaving their prime. United are signing players who are playing for either their first big contract or preparing for that next big contract after this one, not handing out, their last big cushy salary that they're going to get, and there's zero resale value after that. United's best teams in the Premier League era have all been built on potential, whether it was the class of 92 bolstering those mid-90s teams or the 99 treble team, or, that 08 Champions League final being built with players that were purchased earlier. Ronaldo bought at 18, Rooney bought at 18, Ferdinand brought in at 23, Evra and Vidic brought in around the same age, bringing in Nani and Anderson. United's best teams from the last 20, 25 years have all been, or 30 years, I should say, have all been centered around finding players who they can build into stars, not necessarily purchasing stars who are, winding down their careers. And I think that this is a statement of intent. United are trying to be good for the next couple of years, as well as it's just smarter business. If a player doesn't work out, then they might have some resale value, where if you buy Casemiro, you have a great year, and then a second year was a terrible year, he has no resale value around Europe, especially with the huge salary is on. You're really reliant on that Saudi league offer to bring him out at a reasonable price and not have to worry about sharing some of his wages. And another thing that we're hearing is that based on, the Zirkzee signing, Zirkzee was on something like 19K a week at Bologna. Under previous regimes, we would have signed him and brought him in under 150, 200K a week. The rumor right now, I don't know if it's 100% sure, is that Zirkzee was brought in under 55K a week, 60K a week salary, which is perfect for a player like him. He comes in, his salary is doubled, more than doubled, but at the same time, we're keeping it at a reasonable range. So if it doesn't work out for whatever reason, and trust me, I'm not saying it's not going to work out, I'm a big fan of Joshua Zirkzee, then he has some resale value. We can move him on with very little fuss. So that's the first signing that we made. We know the main targets have been striker, center back, and then defensive midfielder, and potentially left back, maybe a second center back as well. You can say maybe a right back if Aaron Wan-Bissaka leaves, potentially a winger, although it seems like we're not really signing a winger without moving somebody else out first. So the first one is Joshua Zirkzee. Fabrizio Romano give it the here we go. Ornstein dropped his approval as well and his co-sign on the fact that United have signed Joshua Zirkzee. We've already seen him holding up the shirt, doing the fake signing with the blank piece of paper with a little bit of United logo on it. Pictures with Erik ten Hag at the table as well. He's official. 42 million euros. Yeah, he had a release clause of 40 million euros. United paid 2 extra million euros just so they could space that payment out in installments rather than having to pay that whole release clause up front, which gives them a little bit more flexibility in the signings they can make this year. As far as the player, I've heard he's gotten a 5-year +1 deal. So 5 years guaranteed, and then United have an option to extend for a further year. So he's 23 now. That could take him to 28, potentially 29. And he's rumored, again, like I said, to be on £50,000 per week, which is a very reasonable salary during that time frame. I think Joshua Zirkzee is a great player. I think, I'm kind of torn between saying let's be measured and tempered in our expectations here and not expect him to hit the ground running just because, he is coming from Serie A. There's going to be an adjustment. It's not the same league. Rasmus needs an adjustment as well. But at the same time, he's not the guy doing it by himself. Rasmus is going to be there. Obviously there's going to be other players there. He's got Ruud van Nistelrooy, one of United's best strikers ever to advise him. So I think that there is potential for him to not only, play well, but also because of his style and how he fits our team and the way that we want to play and the way Ten Hag wants to play. I think his style of play is going to, A, fit our system so well, and B, help unlock our wingers and Rashford and Garnacho, and even Bruno as attacking mid who want to get in behind. Next on the list is center back. So Matthias de Ligt, everyone's saying this one is on a 2-yard line. A reporter said today, or a journalist said today, that it's officially a done deal. We're just waiting on a few things here and there. Don't know how sure that or how true that is. It could be someone trying to, guess the next move. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't have that information. He's more trying to jump the information, and hopefully he's right if it does come out. Sometimes journalists do this. They say that, and then they're wrong. It ends up happening a few days later or weeks later, but they didn't have any information. They were just kind of guessing what was going to happen next. So I think that's the situation with this guy. Either way, it feels like this one is on the 2-yard line. Terms are agreed with the player. It sounds like he's willing to take a pay cut. There's rumors he's willing to go from 260K a week to 170K a week, which is a huge paycheck or pay cut. But there's also some rumors that he is asking Bayern for a payout if he's going to leave because he's going to be, taking that pay cut. So he's asking him to cover the difference. Also, it's, rumors that Bayern wants 50 million euros, where United are looking a little bit more for like 42 million euros, somewhere in that range. Maybe they can kind of split the difference with add-ons. We'll see. But I think this is one that's going to get done. It's just a matter of when, not really if with what the information we have so far. Next on the center back front, Lenny Euro. There was a lot of optimism from this one since last week. There was a lot of momentum. United seemed very positive about the move, and it came out that, his club Lille was pushing him to make the move. And the reason is because, it was originally tipped that he was going to go to Real Madrid, but Real Madrid was bullying Lille. They were saying, we're not going to pay your valuation. Lille wanted, something like 50 million euros for him, 40 million euros, whatever, somewhere in that range. United bid that 50 million euros, 42 million pounds, and it's been accepted by Lille. Real Madrid has said, we're not going to pay for him at this price. We want him on our terms, which is somewhere in the 20, 25 million euro range, or we're not going to sign him this summer and we'll wait till he's free the next summer, similar to what they did to Kylian Mbappe and what they did to Camavinga a few summers ago. And they're hoping that Lille will cave at the end of the summer, knowing that the player only wants to go to Madrid. And United have stepped in and they've tried to sell Lenny Euro on this project. And all indications in the past week have been, United did turn his head and they were looking at him and they were pitching him and trying to get him in on the project. They're guaranteeing him playtime. And, when Zirkzee signed, he mentioned how the manager and the upper management of the team, Ten Hag and all the other people who pitched him, he mentioned that, the project that was presented to him and the excitement of the future is a big part of what drew him to United, which is amazing because, that's music to my ears as far as United saying, we're selling young, talented players on the future of this club. It sounded like Euro was, a bit sold on it, but all indications today is that he still wants to go to Real Madrid. So unless, something changes between now and then, he's not coming. But at the end of the day, Euro's not coming, but at least we tried. I agree completely. I think he's a class player. He's being billed kind of like as the next Varane. And listen, if he's half as good as Varane, he'll be a very good player. But he's going to be a different style, a little better on the ball, just because that's how players are trained today. But I think he has a lot of potential. But even if he doesn't come, I think we can move on. And like you said, we tried. We took our shot. But, it's the right type of move, and it hasn't affected any other moves. So it's not like we were banking on Lenny Euro or nobody else. This was something that was outside of what we were trying to do at the time. They said it was a unique market opportunity. So I'm glad we went after him, and he still could sign, but it looks like it's not going to happen. Other news, Branthwaite, that one sounds like it's dead. Everton had a little selling pressure because they had some, profit and sustainability rules issues that they were bumping up against. It looks like that's all taken care of. They sold Fofana, I think it was, or one of those center backs to Italy for 15 million. And then they just sold Amadou Onana, who I was a big fan of, to Aston Villa for 50 million pounds. So it sounds like they've, sold enough where they don't have to sell Branthwaite at a cut price. They can sell him, at whatever price they want, or they just end up keeping him. And look, I'm okay with not, going in and spending too much for him. I think it sends a message that we're not going to be overpaying for players anymore. And unless he throws an absolute hissy fit and starts, booting balls into the stands at stadium or at training and, trying to hit journalists or whatever, it sounds like he's going to be an Everton player next year. I liked him. I know he worked under Ruud at PSV as well. But you know what? It's not, such an issue between him. Like, there's other players we can sign that could play left center back or could play left center back / left back and cover both and be back up to Lisandro Martinez, who I'd be fine with. Like, I'm not gutted if we don't get Jared Branthwaite, especially if we're going to have to pay through the nose for him. Also, there's been a couple links to players like Jorel Hato from Ajax, Ignacio from Sporting Lisbon, David Hancho from Feyenoord. If there's any more solid links, I'll go a little deeper into those. But those are all guys who fit the bill, can play left center back, can play left back in a pinch, and would be good cover for both positions to keep our best players healthy. Next, we have Manuel Ugarte at the defensive midfielder position. This is one that felt like it was a lot closer than it actually is now. The news is that PSG value him at 60 million euros, which is basically what they paid for him, which is kind of insane considering they want to sell him after 1 year, and everyone knows he wants to go and he wants to be sold. Again, this one is just haggling. Maybe it's something where we find somewhere in between with add-ons, we can get closer to their price. But I think they're being a little bit unrealistic. I think something in the 40 million euro range with some add-ons, that could be better. But again, they're trying to get rid of this player. They're looking to bring in some other signings. Hopefully they just, come to their senses, but I don't think it's going to be 60 million euros. He was in the Copa America. He played well. Didn't see him much against Uruguay last night, or for Uruguay 2 nights ago, because I think he came off at halftime or whatever it was, but he had a decent tournament. I think he's a good player. I think he's a ball-winning monster. He's kind of one of those guys who's just like running around, smashing people, getting into tackles. That's exactly what United need, someone to just win the ball back and give it to the players around him, and he fits that bill. But it sounds like the deal's not quite as far along as we thought it was, even though the player's keen and PSG is keen to sell. Amrabat's still sitting there. I know there's news that we're going to find out what Amrabat is going to do at the end of this week. I don't know how accurate that is, but I'm sure he wants to know where he's playing next year as soon as possible after not having a preseason last year and starting the season super slow. I'd be happy if he came back here for 13 million. Even if we get Ugarte, we probably are going to need a second midfielder, depending on what happens with guys like Eriksen or McTominay. I'd be happy to bring him back so we have at least 2 number 6s. And if we end up not getting Ugarte and we go with someone like Toby Collyer, who looked good today in the preseason, then at least we can have Amrabat as someone for Collyer to play as an understudy to. And then, when Collyer gets a little bit more seasoned, then he can kind of win that role back. But Amrabat's here. We know he can play well by the way he played at the end of the season. And then lastly, these are a couple of players who were linked, but doesn't look like anything's concrete or started yet. There's a left back we were linked to, Ferdi Kadioglu. This guy looks like a real baller. He's a right-footed left back, but he's played on both sides, very two-footed. He can play right back, left back. He can play center midfielder. He's played left midfielder this year or this past season, but he's also played right midfield. He can play attacking midfield as well. This guy plays all over the pitch, can invert, has like very good shooting statistics, but also he's a very high intensity defender, likes to press, likes to tackle, likes to contribute defensively, kind of an all-around player. He's also Dutch, which is funny, or he was born in the Netherlands. He was Dutch, played for the Dutch youth team, but then transferred to Turkey for senior team. He's got a very Turkish name, but he was raised in the Netherlands. So, it fits the bill for what United are trying to do with their Dutch movement, it looks like. But I like him. He looks like a good player. I wouldn't mind if United brought them in. And another one for the Dutch connection, Xavi Simons. Xavi Simons, he's another Dutch national. He was in the Barcelona Academy before moving to PSG, and then he went on loan a couple times to PSV under Ruud van Nistelrooy. The rumor is that Ruud is the one who's kind of insisting on United going for him. I like this guy. I don't know how concrete these links are, but he's sort of an attacking midfielder in the Musiala role. I'm not saying he's as good as Musiala, but he's kind of a similar player, that kind of all action, has quick feet, good with both feet, can play all across the front line behind the striker, probably could be a little bit of a false nine, has a good shot on him, decent playmaker. I think he's a nice player. He's very young. He's only like 23 years old. And this deal sounds like it would be a loan with a obligation to buy, which I think would fit United because they're not looking to spend a ton of money this summer. But he's a very good player. I just don't know how solid the links are. That's it for the ins from this week. Now moving to the outs. Mason Greenwood, this one looked like it was done. It looked like he was moving to Marseille. That offer of £27 million with 4 or 5 million in add-ons, and then a 50% sell-on clause. Apparently, Lazio offered almost the exact same deal. It was something like 25 million euros with add-ons, 50 million sell-on clause, and their president was out here talking smack, talking about his ops in Napoli and Juventus trying to mess up his deal. So it seems like it's still up in the air. And word on the street is kind of that Greenwood has to make a decision where he wants to go. There have been some protests in Italy, and there have also been some protests in France. I think the mayor of Marseille was saying he didn't want Greenwood to come play for Marseille. I don't know what kind of pull he has on the club or the president of the club, but maybe Greenwood is saying, am I welcome in the city? Is it going to be the problem? Do I want to go here for the next 4 or 5 years with my family? Either way, it sounds like his decision to make. and United wanted to make the decision soon so they can get him off their books and bring that money in to kind of put towards the books and transfers. Casemiro, again, kind of got a little quiet, still linked to Saudi. Saudi's still looking for players who are more in their prime, sort of those younger 26, 27, 28-year-olds. I mean, they've moved for some younger players, but younger guys don't really want to go to Saudi at this point in time in their career. Casemiro, I think, is still waiting for them to, make a move, see what kind of money they could get for him, United can get for him, and also what kind of salary they're offering. I know they're moving for Ederson for Manchester City. He's 28, but Manchester City wants 50 million euros. Hopefully that's something that we can get as well, although I think something more like 30 million euros is probably more realistic. But, that's where I think we're looking to sell him. He played in preseason today, but that doesn't mean anything. I remember under Jose Mourinho's preseason for tour, his first season, I think Memphis Depay started basically every game until we brought in Zlatan at the end of the preseason, and then he moved Memphis on. So I think Casemiro's here doing preseason, playing nice. There's rumors he's willing to stay and fight for his place. I don't buy it. I think he's moving before the end of the window. Jadon Sancho back in training as well. I think United are still trying to sell him. I think this is basically a smokescreen. They're saying, Ten Hag and Sancho made up. He's going to be available for selection for future games. Wasn't back today because, he was playing in the Champions League final in June, so they wanted to give him that full month off or whatever it was. So he's just started training, but apparently he's going to be available for selection, possibly Saturday, definitely following. I think they still want to get rid of him. I think the issue is if they keep him or if they decide they're going to not sell him, or they said they're going to sell him and they don't keep him, they kick him out, they send him to the youth team or whatever, then they know there's a pressure to move him on. If we pretend like we can, reintegrate him with the team, we're all made up, then maybe teams will start to bid, make a move for him. I know there were some teams like Juventus who were looking at Greenwood or Sancho. It could be just United trying to drum up interest, but I think it's possible that, if he's back, if he's training with us, if it looks like we can keep him, then maybe we're not tricking, but trying to, goad teams into making a bid closer to United's valuation instead of getting him for pennies on the dollar like they've been trying to all summer. Again, we're listening to offers for Maguire, Lindelof, McTominay, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Pellistri, Hannibal. Hannibal played today, but he was McTominay is not back yet. Lindelof, Maguire's still injured, I think. Aaron Wan-Bissaka played today. I think we've, heard of interest for Lindelof, McTominay, and Aaron Wan-Bissaka from Turkey. Doesn't sound like they're interested necessarily in going there, and it sounds like we're not getting the transfer fees we want, so we're kind of holding off. I think Maguire and McTominay, even though they have a year left on their deal, they can command decent money. We'll just see what offers come in and when we make a move there. But those players, they've been told they can leave. As far as internationals, we had the Euros final and Copa America final. England ended up losing to Spain in the final. I think everyone kind of predicted that was going to happen. You watched the game, and it looked like Spain deserved to win. England, because they're such a talented team, they were able to get back into it with a goal. But at the same time, Spain was just a better team, and they ended up pulling ahead. And honestly, it was a fair result. England, for all their talent, probably more talent than Spain has, they're just not a cohesive unit. And I think that goes with the coaching. You can say he's done a great job to get them there, but I think England's talent compared to the other teams, if you look at England compared to Brazil, for example, or Germany, Spain, Italy, all those teams back in the mid-2000s to late 2000s, England had great players, but they didn't stack up to those other teams. But you look at England compared to the best teams now, they have a much higher talent ratio, at least in my opinion. Look at all the attacking and talent that they have. They should be doing better, but they're not able to, and I think that's down to the coaching. Kobe Mainoo was gutted. I thought he played well in the tournament. Didn't have a great game in the final, but he didn't stink the place out. I thought he was a good player, and I thought, he really poured his heart into it. And the fact that he's come this far in just 6 or 7 months, it really shows the character of this young player as well as the potential that he has. Shaw didn't play until the last 3 games, started the final, played the whole final. I thought he played really well in the first half and kind of faded a little bit. Makes sense considering his conditioning. But you forget how good Luke Shaw is until you see him play. We got to figure out how to keep this guy healthy for this season by bringing in, some cover or whatever it is, just minutes restriction. We got to figure out a way to make sure he plays in all our big matches. Argentina beat Colombia in the Copa America final. Lisandro Martinez was one of Argentina's best players throughout the tournament. He didn't, while he was on the pitch, Argentina did not give up a goal. The games he started and finished, they didn't give up a goal. He came off as a sub one game, and Otamendi, his replacement, was beaten by a header to give up a goal, and they had to win on penalties. And, if Lisandro had been in the game, probably would have won that header and it wouldn't have happened. Garnacho wasn't able to play, but I think it's a good experience for him, and I'm happy he got to lift another trophy. But that's kind of the international roundup. United preseason update. United played a preseason match today. Again, crazy that United is back in action already. The first preseason match. If you watched the preseason match or you saw the highlights, what are your thoughts? There's a lot of people out here who are saying like, "Oh, United lost to Rosenborg. It looked terrible." There's grumblings already about people talking about Ten Hag and how terrible we were. I think it's nonsense. It's the first preseason game. Rosenborg, it wasn't their preseason. They're halfway through their actual season. This was their 15th or 16th game, so they're all going to be super fit. They're in midseason form. United players are just trying to get into form in their first preseason match. Look, you never want to lose anything. Ten Hag said, the result wasn't good enough. The performance wasn't good enough. He's always hard on the team in press conferences. I get he wants to keep the standards up, but it's the first preseason match. Guys are just trying to get their fitness. I think Rosenborg probably should have won 3-1, 4-1. United had a couple chances. But the goalkeeper, Ratek, he was really good. I think he was man of the match. Toby Collyer also could have been man of the match, but he only played a half. But Ratek was, out there having crazy saves. But Collyer, I think, looked good. I think he didn't look off the pace. As far as outfield players, he was probably the best player. Physically, he looks ready. He looks like a strong kid. I think he's like 20 years old, maybe 21 already. But he's like a big, strong kid. Very common possession, knows how to play. Came from Brighton, who's a team that plays out from the back. So I think he's got that technical ability as well. He's not the talent or the prospect that like a Kobe Mainoo or a Garnacho was, but I think he's a good player who could step in and be in that role. Michael Carrick was never some huge talent, but he came in. I'm not saying this kid's Michael Carrick, but it's not inconceivable that in 3-4 years, he could turn into a player who's, shielding the back forward for United or playing besides Ugarte, whatever, with Kobe Mainoo ahead of them. But either way, he looked really good. I thought Ethan Wheatley looked decent as well. He didn't get a lot of service, but, when he did, he was good on the ball. He pressed well. He played a couple players in, although he could have played Ethan Williams in for a shot on goal. The other interesting thing was Mason Mount played in a double pivot with Casemiro, with Hannibal ahead at number 10. I thought that was weird. I thought maybe Hannibal would be next to Mason Mount or be next to Casemiro, and Matt would be the 10. But it looks like Ten Hag is signaling he wants to play Mason Mount a little bit deeper, which I understand. You can have that player who can kind of play in the half space, can press, is good on the ball, has a little bit of passing range. Or maybe he was just shoehorning him there and he wants to feature Hannibal in his best position just so we can sell him to teams who would see that's the kind of player he is and what he could do. But Hannibal didn't have a great game, so I don't know if that was the point or if it worked if it was. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Let me know on all of the, signings that we've made so far, whether it's Ten Hag re-signing his contract or signing the extension, or Ruud or Hake or the new goalkeeping coach or Barada coming in, or even, like I said, Ugarte and Ligt being on the 2-yard line, or maybe not. Like, talk to me. What do you think about, our summer so far? Do you think we're doing a good job? Do you feel optimism like I do? Also, if you're watching and you haven't yet, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and of course, hit the bell for notifications. Up the Reds, and let's go on the USA tour coming in 2 weeks.